Seeing someone upset or being with someone who is upset can be a really awkward situation and a very difficult situation to deal with for many. Some people are just not the type of people to naturally be able to switch into that caring mode of being able to comfort someone who is upset well. Most people on the globe just don't really know how to deal with them situations, or they think they do, but when they happen, they become really awkward and reserved and are like, oh my god, I don't know what to do now. However, the effects of not dealing with someone who is upset correctly are major. You know, if someone is upset, they're not really just expecting you to stand there and stare at them. They're expecting you to provide them some comfort, or to leave them alone for a bit, or to do something that in their head will help them. Especially if you're a friend or a family member to this person, they definitely are not going to expect you to sit there and kind of just hope for the best. So today, I'm going to go over how to prevent you just kind of standing there awkwardly while someone is upset. Because, trust me, you won't believe how many people actually do this. And it can be, for the person who is upset, quite annoying. What's up guys, welcome back to the Focus the Future channel. I hope you guys are all having an amazing day. I hope we're all well, safe and happy, even if we are in lockdown at the moment or under restrictions. I do understand that a lot of people are going back into this very odd life again. Please make sure you're maintaining your health and your kind of self-care, because these key things are very important during this very odd time. However, apart from all that, today we are going over how to deal with someone who is upset in a direct situation. So when you are directly with someone who is upset, what to do, how to cope with it, and how is the best way to approach it. So, if you're interested in all these things, please stay tuned. If not, please check the video description and click on the top link to learn a bit more about me. But apart from that, let's jump into this video and learn a bit more about how to deal or approach a situation where someone is upset. Now, the first thing I need to make clear during this entire process is that there is a very big difference between comfort and solution. This is the mistake I used to make when I was dealing with people who was upset at first. One of the biggest problems I had when in them situations is that my brain always wanted to find a solution to the person in front of me's problems. If someone was upset in front of me, I would have seen that as an error, a problem, something that needed to be solved. So, because of that, I would be like, well, they're upset, so I now need to go and find a solution for all their life's problems. And by doing this, I used to create more problems than I did solve. And this is where the term comfort over solution comes from. The idea is that instead of going into someone's life who is upset and being like, right, you should do this, this and this to solve all your problems, it's time to show them some comfort. People who are upset are probably not thinking logically. Their brain is not in a position to be trying to figure out stuff or try and sort stuff out or even try and correct the issue that they're upset about. So by you coming in and throwing logic in their face, you're not really helping them. When they are ready to approach their problems, they will come round and do it themselves. Now, you're not really going to think of it this way unless you directly observe that you're doing it and it's affecting the person, which is how I learn. But today I wanted to tell you this because it does allow you to avoid some very awkward situations in the future. So yeah, that's my first thing. Make sure instead of going into that situation and providing solutions to the person who is upset, it's time to provide them some comfort. Comfort. Now, by comfort, I don't mean going up to them, giving them a big expressive huggle, wrapping them in your arms, you know, being really intimate and like throwing all these lovely terminologies in their face. Some people might like that, but most people are not. By being comforting, I mean making sure they know you are there to support them. Let them cry. There's no point telling them to stop crying or to stop thinking about their problems or to not worry. None of these things are actually going to help the person. If anything, it's going to put more pressure on their shoulders and probably going to make them cry more. You know, sit next to them. You don't even have to express that you're even with that person. Sometimes you just coming along, sitting down next to them, making yourself look confident and relaxed is a way of showing the person next to you, look, you're not alone. It's one of the first things I do when I notice someone's upset. I don't say anything to the person. I don't, approach them with big expressive actions. I just go along, sit next to them, and remain silent. I'm waiting for them to acknowledge that I'm there, to show to me that they're ready to talk. There's no point me banging words out if they're not even ready to talk themselves. Sometimes people just need to cry, and it's not something that is considered unhealthy. Crying is actually considered one of the most healthiest actions you can undertake. It's a way of your brain releasing negative feelings and emotions. So, when you first see someone that's upset, remember, comfort over solution, and just make sure they know that you are there to support them if necessary. Now, obviously, don't just sit there in silence for long periods of time. Maybe for the first 5 minutes, sit there and say nothing. But after a little while, you do need to make sure that they genuinely do know you're there. You don't want them turning around and being like, oh my god, where'd you come from? Because you'll probably just scare the living shit out of them. But when you do engage in conversation, don't say anything patronising. Don't try and give them solutions. Don't even ask them what is wrong. Just be like, I'm here. If you know them well and you know they don't mind being hugged, maybe put an arm around them. Maybe, get to their level, kneel in front of them, look at them. Anything that kind of shows them that you're there to support them is probably the best action you can take when you first see someone that's upset. Now, obviously, it does help if you know the person directly, because you kind of know what they like and what they don't like when they're upset. For example, you'll know if they like being hugged or if they don't, if they like you asking them certain questions and if you don't. But if you don't know them, it is made twice as harder, because you're kind of going into a situation where you know nothing about someone, you don't know what they like and don't like, so you're kind of working with the blind. By the way, if you see someone on the street that is upset, I wouldn't advise just directly approaching them. If you think it's a child, straight up either look for their parents, or if you think they are genuinely in danger, please call the police, because that child needs to be taken somewhere. If it's an adult, you can try and approach them, but please, approach with caution. You don't know who this person is. The next thing is understanding how a person who's upset is going to react. Just because you've gone up to them and been nice, been really nice and tried to be very helpful, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a positive reaction out of them. There's going to be times where you're going to do your very best to help, and they might react in a very infuriated and angry way. And at that point, it's time to walk away and give them some space. So in these situations, there's 2 different types of reactors. Actually, technically 3, but the middle ones are very rare. So the main 2 are reserved reactors and expressive reactors. And then one in the middle is called a contradictory reactor, which I'll explain in a minute. A reserved reactor is someone who is extremely introverted. They deal with their problems internally. They like to deal with anything that comes their way and anything that's upsetting them in their own heads. They don't like talking. They're not very engaging in terms of, wanting to open up. They just want to be alone in a little space and cry and get it all out. With people like this, it's very important to give them space when they're upset. So if you are trying to comfort someone like this, you can sit next to them, but I'm not necessarily, saying that you should go and hug them and smother them with kisses. Probably not a good idea. The other one is an expressive reactor. Now, this is when things get really risky. An expressive reactor could just be someone who likes talking, likes being open, likes to really express their emotions, but it could also lead to anger or tantrums, which means things could turn violent. So if someone's going to express things actively when they're feeling sad, just be careful how you act and be careful what words you say. My advice is listen more than you talk. The last thing that someone who is upset wants you to say is your problems don't matter, or, you'll be fine, you'll be okay. They just want you to sit there and listen to them. If they ask for advice, give it. And if they ask for comfort, give it, or it's appropriate. But don't go in there charging head first trying to solve their issues. It really doesn't work. And then the contradictory reactor is the person who is kind of in the middle of the two. Sometimes they like to express things, their emotions, and then other times they don't. So with people like that, you can never really tell what one they are. You just kind of have to get to know the person really well, and from that make a decision of what the best thing is to do. The next thing you need to be able to do well to approach someone who is upset successfully is be able to read body language. Now, I plan to go over body language a lot more deeply on this channel because I did a lot of studying in this in my early days. But the basics of it is being able to tell whether they're really upset, whether they're just kind of a bit emotional, and when they're down. The best way of approaching someone who is upset is before they even start crying. Realistically, you want to be able to identify that someone's not right the minute you see them. You should kind of be able to tell through their facial expressions, through the way they're walking, through the way they're talking, whether their mood's a bit off or not. Most people on the planet can identify this, but some people seem to find this a bit difficult, or even when they've identified these things, they don't really act upon them. So I'm going to make another video on all this, but the basics is, if they're clearly looking a bit down, just be careful what you say and what you do. Try and lighten the atmosphere up a bit, rather than talking about really depressing stuff. Try and prevent the upset before it actually happens. But also, if they're generally already crying, reading body language, reading whether they've got their hands between their legs, whether their legs are shaking, even being able to identify whether they're in an anxiety attack or panic attack will be really useful. But I will make another video on this just to kind of go over this in a bit more detail, because body language is an entire topic in itself. Next biggest tip, and this is probably the biggest tip of them all, is do not say, "Are you okay?" Again, goes back to body language. If they're crying on a bench or crying somewhere, they're clearly not okay. And the last thing someone who is upset wants you to ask them is, "Are you okay?" It's the most annoying and pathetic question you can ever be asked. If you want to show that you're there for them and you're comforting, ask what's wrong or what do you want me to do, or again, just go and sit next to them. The chances are they're not going to want you to say, "What is happening?" or "Are you okay?" Next tip is seem put together. Now, for a lot of people this is not easy. A lot of people tend to panic. But if you are generally a kind of in control person, please remain calm and presented during these situations. Even seem a bit upbeat. The last thing the person who's upset wants you to be is crying with them. They want you to seem like, you're calm, you're relaxed, you've got things together. Because, again, you're trying to represent how you feel onto them. You want them to feel better. You're not going to make them feel better by sitting there bursting your eyes out as well. You can express emotion with them. I'm not saying you can't do that. You can empathise with them, and if the situation is right and, you've been talking on a deep level, you can cry with them. But what I'm saying is don't immediately walk up to them and just burst into tears with them. Not going to work. And then if the discussion progresses and the situation starts to open up, you may then start to give advice and tips and guide them of where to go next. But please be careful with this. I learnt the hard way that giving tips and advice can lead to a hell of a lot of problems. Make sure these tips are genuinely proven and they're from the bottom of your heart, or you've seen them somewhere, before just chucking them at a friend, because you can end them in a lot of rubbish. And after all the advice is given, after all the upset has happened, after, you know, the main cycle of upset events has took place, it's time to have fun. The best thing you can do as a friend or a colleague is take them out of that environment and go and get them doing something that's a bit more positive. It's probably the best thing they want from you. But don't do that the minute you go up to them. Wait for them to cry a bit and talk a bit before you start chucking them in a fun fair and trying to get them to go on big scary rides. So, yeah, that's the basic advice I have for you. I thought I'd cover these key things because I think they are good key points, and I've done some research on this over the last couple of days, and these are the best things I've kind of put together with my own knowledge and what I've seen online. So I hope this has helped you and helped someone else. If it has, please leave a comment in the description. Please leave a comment down below, letting me know how it helped you and what you enjoyed of this video. Also, make sure you're hitting like and hitting the subscribe button to come and join our amazing community. But apart from that, I will catch all you dudes next time. Bye bye.